So in this video I'm going to talk about the important difference between knowledge and wisdom. And I'm going to start with knowledge, because knowledge is something that comes from the outside, from outside sources like books and videos, in the form of words or information. It's not coming from the inside, it's not coming from your true self, it's coming from outside sources. And you can collect all the knowledge in the world and it will not change your level of mind and consciousness, at least not by much. I mean, you can read like 10 books that calibrate at the level 1000 and your own level of consciousness will not really be impacted much by it. It can be useful, but it can also be a trap, because knowledge can easily stagnate and trap you if you believe that having this knowledge means that you actually know anything. It doesn't mean you have true knowledge or wisdom, because you have gotten it from the outside sources and there are more than enough books you can read that everybody can read. It doesn't change their level of consciousness. Okay, if it was that simple, just read a book or two or watch this video, then everybody would be wise. There would be a different world. But that, arguments, teachings, all these things, they don't really change your level of consciousness. Only one thing does. Only one thing leads to true wisdom, and that is to dismantle your own artificial trauma-based personality prison, which was installed in you since birth. That's the only way to gain true wisdom. There is no other way. I mean, knowledge can teach you how to do that, but you can't really gain true wisdom from knowledge. Not from watching my videos, not from reading my book, anything. I'm helping people to do what is needed to get true wisdom. And that is to dismantle yourself or your own artificial personality structure that is trauma-based, and it was installed from early childhood until you became an adult. And that is what is meant by know thyself, because the deeper you heal yourself, the higher your level of mind and consciousness you achieve, the more you will know yourself, the more true wisdom you will have. Because each main level of consciousness is like its own paradigm, which gives you access to a certain perspective and certain insights according to that level. And this changes the higher you go, so you can be, above average, but you can still be ignorant about a lot of stuff that you don't see, because your perspective is still distorted by all the filters you have inside in your unconscious mind. So you don't really see a higher truth or a higher perspective, but you see higher than most people. For example, in the 300s or 400s, you see higher than most people on the planet, but you don't see from the 500 perspective or from the non-duality perspective, which is even higher. So it's always more and more. You can't just think that now I know and now I'm going to start teaching because I know I read a book. You have to give it time. You have to actually dig deep and go deep in yourself and walk the walk first, because each filter you remove uncovers more of your full awareness, and this aligns you more and more with the all-knowing higher mind. And the higher mind is the true source of wisdom and coming from the inside. And a sign of true wisdom is that it provides you with a unique and fresh perspective, like I do in my videos and ebook. I talk about the same stuff that most teachers talk about when it comes to these things, but nobody talks about it the way I do. You will not find, these perspectives that I present on how the ego works and the personality structure and how everything starts with an initial rejection trauma as a newborn baby. Nobody else teaches that, because this is knowledge, or this is wisdom I have gained by digging deep and healing myself to the bottom, basically taking myself from level 50, which was my lowest level. I was born in the mid 300s and went down to level 50 when I was like 19, 20 years old. And then I worked on myself and did all these things I teach in my book and in my videos, and then I eventually ended up, now I'm in the lower 600s. I spent like many years in level 500s also, but then I healed my deepest childhood core woundings with the assistance from my higher mind and ETs, which I talk about in a few other videos. And that means I'm basically healed myself to the deepest issues as far as you can take it, without actually being granted enlightenment or non-duality, which maybe at some point will happen. But if you take it that far, if you take yourself to these levels, you will you might be granted enlightenment or in non-duality at some point, but that's up to the higher mind. It's not really something you can do yourself. I talk about this in other videos too. So you can heal yourself to the borderline of non-duality. That's the best you can do, and that means you know yourself to the bottom, so to speak, and you have gained a lot of wisdom from doing that, and you have gained a unique perspective because your path is unique. Because when you start to walk the pathless path, you will create a unique path for yourself that nobody else has ever walked. That gives you a very unique perspective on all the same things, basically, because everything is about the same, but it's just how you see it from your perspective and your journey that gives you that kind of wisdom, and that's different from other teachers. And many people, they talk the talk before they've actually walked the walk, which is a classic spiritual ego trap that many people fall into. And it kind of makes you a little bit annoying because you're just basically quoting things you have read or beliefs that you have picked up from some other teacher or whatever. That's not really wisdom, and that makes you kind of annoying because it's so obvious that you don't really know what you're talking about. You haven't grounded things in your own experience. You're just quoting people, quoting Bashar, quoting this and that. I mean, I see so many people who follow Bashar. They do this all the time. They quote him and what he says like they know it themselves. They have not grounded it in their own experience. That's really important. You have to ground things in your experience first before you teach others about it. Otherwise it's not really yours. You're just passing on belief systems, and that's like religion. But that being said, knowing about the levels of mind and consciousness and the fact that there even are such levels, that's actually very useful, because most people have no idea that they can even change in that way, that radical way inside themselves. That's not common knowledge, and that's what I'm trying to spread the awareness of with this scale and this map of consciousness, is to spread the word that hey, there is such a scale. You can actually raise your consciousness and you can actually change your life in radical ways by following certain teachings and doing certain things, that can actually improve your life a lot. Many people have no idea about this, so that's why I think the map and the scale of consciousness is useful in that sense, to spread the awareness of hey, something else is possible. You can actually heal, and all the main concepts I talk about in my ebook and on this channel are grounded in a verifiable reality that anybody can verify for themselves. That's the point. That's why the truth about schizophrenia, which I talk about a lot in my book and also in another video, which it's called The Truth About Schizophrenia. You can check it out. Because schizophrenia reveals what many teachers or people refer to as darkness, or many teachers, enlightened teachers, refer to talk about the mind being the adversary, right? It's the mind, it's the ego, it's the mind. Well, they don't really ground it in reality like they do if you understand schizophrenia, because when you realize the truth about that, and you see that everybody has a certain degree of that, because that's what darkness is. That's what the so-called adversary is, and the mind is. It's these voices that people have that you have in your head that are trying to gaslight you and make you do, or gaslight you onto the negative path and make you say and do negative stuff, because that's their food source. And that's what I talk about in my ebook. I put all this into a big perspective, like how it works on this planet, and I also have a video about it. But you see, that's the difference. If you just walk around talking about light and love and darkness, then nothing is grounded in reality, right? Things has to be, for me it was always important, at least on my path, but I always knew I have to ground things in reality. I can't just get into abstractions and believe all sorts of nonsense because somebody said so. It has to be verifiable and grounded in reality, and that's why schizophrenia is important, because it grounds what is the adversary, what is the mind that is so bad and trying to gaslight people. Why is it doing that? You understand all that when you study schizophrenia, and that's what I talk about in my book, and you can check my other video, because that reveals the adversary, because it's much more amplified in these people than in normal people. So it's much more noticeable, because these schizophrenics, they hear like very strong and real voices that are trying to gaslight them and are always negative and try to break them down. But that's the case for everybody. That's the case for all people. The higher you go on the scale, the less you have of this. Especially in the 500s, you're almost completely rid of that problem. But you can still have it at moments if you get, something happens that maybe trigger you or something. You can still get triggered in the 500s. So, you're never safe from it completely. But the point is, that's what I mean by things have to be grounded in a verifiable reality, and everybody can verify this because everybody have these voices. But then maybe you think about these voices at your own thoughts, and that's the problem. They're not. You're not really supposed to have any thoughts. You're supposed to have silence and peace. That's the natural state. That's what you have in the higher 500s and lower 600s, and not least in the non-duality levels. So everybody has a certain degree of schizophrenia based on the initial traumas you get from childhood and whatnot. It's just that these people who suffer from this and being diagnosed as such, they have a much stronger and more amplified version of it. That's the difference. But they help reveal a big truth that many people don't realize. And I talk about this in my book. I suggest if you're interested in this, you should check my ebook and my other video about this. Because that's really important. You have to ground everything in reality. You can't get lost in abstractions in your head from all sorts of nonsense and teachings, because then you're just lost, okay? And that's not going to help you increase your level of consciousness. It's just going to make you more confused and give you less clarity. So that's really important. The big difference and big takeaway is that you have to see clearly, and you have to get rid of what is, all the filters that are in the way for seeing clearly. And that's what you do by dismantling the false personality prison complex inside you. That basically means removing all sorts of filters that are distorting your perspective. So you're seeing more and more clearly, and you get more and more peaceful inside, and peaceful, less and less voices and negativity in your mind and whatnot from doing that. And that's the way to true wisdom. If you just read about it and read books and think then you're basically lost in abstractions and things you have never grounded in your own experience and in actual reality. So my book is completely free from all the feel-good, airy-fairy fluff that you find in so many spiritual books. It's all about practical ways to increase your level of consciousness. It's focused on getting people to verify these things for themselves and how they can heal inside and grow in consciousness. And I give you an action plan and everything so you can get started quickly. And you can everything I talk about, all the main concepts are grounded in reality that you can verify for yourself. And that's the big difference between my book and many other spiritual books. My book is focused on practical stuff and the nuts and bolts. It's not about feel good. It's not about creating these belief systems that you need to believe in. That's not what I'm about. You should never believe in anything. You should get rid of all belief systems. You should just do the practice of actually dismantling your inner prison complex. That's what I teach. That's what I want people to do, because that's actually the only thing that works. And it doesn't require a belief system. You do it one time, you have proof of concepts, and then you will want to do nothing else because it feels so good. You want to continue that, and that's the big difference. You don't need to believe anything to do that. You need to do it one time. Okay, you need to believe that it's possible. That's okay. That I admit that. You have to believe that actually these things are possible at all. But that you can try for yourself, and when you have tried at one time, it will be enough to give you proof of concept, and then that's it. Then you know fully, because it's grounded in your experience. But I'm not asking anybody to believe anything they read in my book or listen to in my videos. I'm trying to make you do what actually works to get your own wisdom, to dismantle your own inner pain body cage that's full of triggers, because this is what leads to true wisdom, and knowledge can only tell you how to do that, and that's what knowledge is useful for. That's what I do in my book, so I suggest you get that book to actually learn how to do these things.